Hi, grade sixes. Today we're going to be talking about mental health and substances. As always, we have a learning goal and some success criteria. Now, our learning goal today is going to carry over a couple of lessons. So today, our learning goal is for you to be able to identify people, resources, and services in the school and the community that can provide support when a person is dealing with a mental health issue. So, some success criteria for today. By the end, I hope that you're going to be able to identify and explain the connection between mental health and substance use, and identify people, resources, and services in the community that can help people dealing with mental health issues. Now, right at the beginning, you'll remember when we were talking about substance use, we had mentioned that there was a bit of a connection between mental health. And we explored that in the lens, or using the lens, of substances. And we didn't really look at the mental health angle of substance use. We mentioned it, we talked about it, but we didn't look at it from a mental health perspective. So that's what we're going to do today. First of all, substance abuse and mental health disorders are closely linked to each other, but it's important to know that one doesn't cause the other. And I think, if you'll remember, we were talking a little bit about that. They don't cause necessarily each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the connection between substance use and mental health and how those two things affect one another. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some definitions. We'll talk a bit about addictions and substance use and mental health issues. What are we talking about when we're talking about those specific things? So let's start with addiction and substance use. So an addiction is a psychological and physical inability to stop consuming a chemical, a drug, activity, or substance, even though it's causing psychological and physical harm. Some addictions involve substances and others involve behaviors such as shopping or gambling. Substance use, on the other hand, refers to the use of drugs or alcohol and includes substances such as cigarettes, illegal drugs, prescription drugs, and so on. So let me give you an example. We'll go back to addiction for a second. I mentioned that addiction could be like a shopping thing, a behavior like shopping. Perhaps you've heard somebody call themselves a shopaholic. Certainly that might be the case where the person really likes to shop, but there's a difference between really liking to shop and having an addiction to shopping. When you have an addiction to shopping, and an addiction to anything else for that matter, you are causing psychological damage to yourself. There is actually something kind of not quite right going on in your brain. And it causes, not so much physical harm, but it can cause a lot of social harm and a lot of harm to your life in terms of your ability to pay bills. So if you're shopping all the time but not paying your bills, that becomes a huge problem. So let's talk then about what mental health issues are. So a mental health disorder or a mental illness refers to a very wide range of mental health conditions that affect a person's mood, thinking, and behavior. Some examples of mental health conditions can include depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and addictive behaviors. So right there, you can kind of see, first of all, that we've talked about this when we were talking about substance use, but also there's a connection right there between mental health and substance use. So mental health issues can cause problems in an individual's daily life, and it can affect a person's ability to function. Most times, mental health issues can be dealt with by visiting a medical professional like a doctor or a psychologist. You can go to therapy. And sometimes it can be dealt with medication. So let's talk about dual diagnosis. So when somebody has both a substance abuse problem and a mental illness, like depression or bipolar disorder or anxiety. It's called a co-occurring disorder or a dual diagnosis. So when somebody has a dual diagnosis, the mental health issue and the addiction have their own unique symptoms that may get in the way of an individual's ability to function in any sort of environment. Co-occurring disorders or dual diagnoses can also impact each other. So, for example, when a mental health problem goes untreated, the substance abuse problem that the person may have usually gets worse. The same goes for when the substance abuse or addiction increases, the mental health problems will also increase as well. But again, it's important to remember that one doesn't cause the other. They kind of go hand in hand, but it's not a cause and effect relationship. So then, what is the relationship? What is the connection? Well, imagine somebody feeling sad all the time and not wanting to go outside. Not like right now where you can't really go outside because of the situation that everybody's in, but just normally just feeling sad all the time and not feeling motivated to talk to anybody, to go outside or do anything like that. The thoughts that they have in their mind are all negative. Even though there are positive things that they have going on, all of their thoughts are just negative. Even the positive things, they look at the negative parts of that. The only thing that they find that helps to take away those feelings of sadness and emptiness could be a substance like alcohol. So the person will drink daily, and sometimes they'll go past their tolerance or the amount that their body can handle, until those feelings disappear. So then the question becomes, all right, well, why would somebody with a mental health issue use or abuse substances? Well, alcohol and drugs, along with other addictive behaviors, can be used to self-medicate the symptoms of mental health problems. So many people will overuse or abuse substances to ease those symptoms of either a diagnosed or undiagnosed mental health issue. And what it does is it helps them to cope with difficult emotions or to temporarily change their mood. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, at the beginning, and you've said it a couple more times after that, that there's not there's a connection, but it's not a cause. Mental health doesn't cause substance use, and vice versa. Substance use doesn't cause mental health. But it sounds right now like it does. Well, research has shown, scientists have done studies, and they found that substance use can increase the underlying risk for mental health issues. But we have to understand, and it's important to note, that mental health issues are actually caused by a combination of genetics, the stuff that makes us who we are, the environment. So remember we were talking about our internal and external environments, and other outside factors. So not everybody is going to experience a mental health issue if they use substances, but sometimes overusing substances can push some people over the edge and make a mental health issue that the person may have had kind of underneath or wasn't really there yet, more likely to appear. Research has also shown that people with mental health issues that use substances could see an increase in symptoms of mental health issues, or even bring about new symptoms. Abuse of alcohol or drugs can also interact with medications that people are taking that can make those medications less effective at managing symptoms. So let's end by talking about some of the symptoms and signs of mental illness. There are some general signs and symptoms of mental health issues that can be spotted, that people can kind of look at. But we have to understand as well that each mental health issue has its own set of criteria, its own kind of rules or symptoms that individuals can be diagnosed by. And we have to remember that mental illness symptoms can affect emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. And it shows up differently in different people because, again, we're all different. So some of those signs and symptoms can include feeling sad or down, confused thinking, or a reduced ability to concentrate. And by that, I mean, I don't mean like, oh, I can't really focus in class. Like, I'm sure everybody's kind of sat around in class and sort of lost focus and concentration. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things where you are sitting and watching TV and you forget what happened. Like, it's almost like you kind of blank out. And you just can't focus on it at all. Other symptoms or signs can include lots of fears and worries or extreme feelings of guilt. They could include extreme mood changes of highs and lows, so going from really, really happy and excited and energetic to really, really low and not energetic and just really sad. Withdrawing from friends and activities, having a high level of tiredness, low energy, or sometimes even problems sleeping. Being just unable to cope with daily problems or stress. So even though things crop up from day to day, even though we all have stress in our lives, when we're talking about being unable to cope with those things, we're talking just getting super frustrated and going, I can't deal with this. And literally losing it over the smallest thing. We're not talking like big things here. We're talking, say you stub your toe and you lose it. Not just because it hurts, but it's just something else that has gone wrong in your life and you just kind of lose everything. It can also, signs and symptoms can also include moving away from reality, so seeing things that aren't there or hearing voices. We talked about that a little bit when we were talking about schizophrenia. Having trouble understanding and relating to situations and to people. And lastly, an increase in anger or hostility or violence. If you see somebody with exhibiting some of those signs, that's when you need to talk to somebody that can help deal with the issue. That's when you talk to a teacher or a principal or a social worker or a child and youth worker at school. You have to talk to somebody that can get that person help. If it's somebody at home, you have to talk to another adult that you can trust, perhaps talk to a doctor. If there's nobody at school or at home that you think can help, you can always call Kids Help Phone. Either call the number or go onto the website. They will be able to help you out with that. And of course, the phone number for Kids Help Phone is 1-800-668-6868. And the website is just kidshelpphone.ca, all one word, no spaces, no dashes, or anything like that.